I'm Joe Rotella, Chief Medical Officer for the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, and I'm at the Annual Assembly of Hospice and Palliative Care 2019. My guest today is Tammie Quest, President of the Academy. Hi, Tammie.
Hi, Joe.
Tammie, could you tell us about your term, when it started and when it ends, and what you've seen as the big issues this year?
My term started Annual Assembly 2018 and ends in one day at the change of hands at the business meeting tomorrow, or I guess it's 2 days really, on Friday about 1 o'clock of this week. So
what have you seen as sort of the biggest challenges during this year of your presidency?
I think the biggest challenges, and as you look through all of our incredible accomplishments, it's being on a trajectory of incredible growth and us really just trying to keep up at the speed of lightning of all the potential opportunities that we have. So this has been the year of the registry projects moving forward, and all of the incredible work, the macro grant, which I think is us being in the right place at the right time with the right stuff, and getting the right partners, so partnering with RAND in that. And so as I think about some of the fancy footwork that's had to occur so that we could pull both of those incredibly big projects into the fold and moving them forward, I would say that those are incredible opportunities, but certainly challenges, because these are two areas that we haven't worked in directly. We've certainly worked in quality, and we've certainly worked in projects that focus on us optimizing our patient-centered care. But something like registries is really just this incredible opportunity in the unification of those registries and our constituents being able to benefit from those, and those include our patients, families, members, organizations, all sorts of folks. So that's been exciting, but certainly a challenge.
There's been no lack of projects to engage with, or invitations or innovations to think about. And actually, it strikes me that one of the challenges is actually to discern which opportunities to pursue. It seems like everybody right now sees a value to having hospice and palliative medicine at the table, particularly around healthcare reform and value-based reforms. And how do you go about deciding whether this is one we should pursue or not?
I really think that based on how quickly healthcare is changing, that we need to be nimble. We need to have some just-in-time decision-making, that we certainly have our strategic plan, but we need to not be rigid. And when opportunities present themselves, if it's something that's going to move our field forward, it's going to help our patients, it's going to make us a stronger organization, I think that we have to look at any and all options that are presented to us. So while I feel that one key to success is certainly focus, being too focused and not keeping our head really at the 30,000-foot view, so that when we see that speck on the screen, that we just don't pass it by. I think it's an important piece of what we need to do. And so trying to figure out what we should actually go for is a different question than actually sort of trying to find out what's out there. So we should always be scanning our environment for the best opportunities. Ultimately, that just-in-time decision-making is made up of a group of incredibly thoughtful individuals and stakeholders. Our board, our organization, our staff are incredibly knowledgeable, and I think we work very well as a team trying to determine, based on all the factors, what makes the most sense for us. So I think that what I would say is that we don't really ignore anything, but we ultimately may only accept some things. But in keeping our eyes wide open is what I think is an important strategy for success.
Great. When you think back over, say, the last 10 years or so, how have you seen the Academy change, and where do you think we're heading?
You and I have had discussions before, but I love to be with the people. And it's really the people that make a difference, and we've got more people than we've ever had before. It's not just a numbers game, though. It's not how many people you have, but it's really the engagement of those people. And so when we think about all the volunteer hours that our members spend so that we can make this field a better field, that really, I think, is the game changer, which is engagement. And we've seen nothing but progressive, innovative, sustained engagement. And whether we had 5 members that were doing that or 5,000 members that were doing that, you certainly could see that having 5,000 might be better than having 5. But looking back on that journey and having seen us as an academy over the last 10 years, as you think through some of the incredible things that have changed in the field, things like board certification, things like the Hospice Medical Director Certification Board, our commitment to diversity and inclusion, our commitment to our Shaping the Future campaign, our commitment to looking at very challenging issues, whether it's the what's going on with opioids or what's going on with regulation. We've progressively never given up the fight in policy and advocacy, and are forward thinking and future looking toward a time when the work that we do will be supported not just in payment models, but also the basis of that education is accessible for everyone. So I think if you look in the rearview mirror and you say, thinking about all those things, we couldn't have gotten here without engagement of our members and the people. And so I guess I would just reflect and say that that sustained momentum is really part of our enormous success.
I heard you say this morning that optimism is a conscious choice that you make every day. And I wondered if you would share with us how having an optimistic viewpoint has helped you as a leader of the Academy.
I think that one of my rules of thumb in my life, because I believe that there's an enormous draw to distress and destruction, and it's sort of like, people can't drive past the traffic accident. So I think we as individuals are often drawn into places that we might not otherwise be drawn into when they're happening, and we have to make a conscious effort to keep the flow of traffic going. I really, in my life and my professional life and my personal life, try to, at the end of the day, when I put my head down on the pillow, and people often say, how many hours do you sleep? And I say, I sleep just enough, because when I put my head down on the pillow and I wake up, it's all gone. It's really like every day is a fresh new day. And so I try really hard to stay in a positive, optimistic place, even on the difficult days, because without that, it's very easy to slip into a spiral of hopelessness and despair and pessimism. And medicine in particular, and healthcare at large, can be a very distressing place to be. And I just choose not to be distressed in it, and to be the positive force that is trying to help, as opposed to wallow, if you will.
So as someone who's actually had the opportunity to work beside you, I could say that we feel that positive energy, and it really does make a difference. I'm wondering if there are other traits that you found particularly helpful this year, or that you would think would be important for future leaders of the Academy.
So thanks for asking that. One of my strength finders, and those of us who have been on the board and others will know about strength finder exercises of characterizing some of your strengths. And one of my key strengths is learner. And I really feel in this role as president that when I come to the point of being asked for my opinion or my point of view, I really want to spend a couple of moments learning more about the backstory and the front story and the side story, even though those things sometimes might seem like tangents or take on a little bit of extra time to really dissect. I feel that context is everything, and that in considering something, you have to think of the context. I may have my own very strong opinion, which I'm not short on, are strong opinions, but that's really not what I'm being asked to consider. It's not really just my opinion and solely my opinion. It's in the context of something. And so learner, staying inquisitive. I remember trying to teach one of our fellows once who was really struggling with the family meeting. And I said, just be naturally curious. If you go in with this family and with this patient and you just remain naturally curious, the questions will come to you as to what you should say next. Those responses, yes, we're going to help you with what those responses are, but if you just stay naturally curious. And so I think bringing a natural curiosity to why something is, how we got here, what are the issues, what's the back, front, and side story, I think helps bring the context, and that really helps me.
Curiosity was exactly the word that was popping in my mind as I was hearing you talking, and I was thinking that next statement or question often is just tell me more. And I've had the pleasure again of watching you do that in a leadership context, is rather than a snap reactive decision, is tell me more, and how often we get to a different place if we can do that. So when you look forward with your chosen optimistic viewpoint, where do you see the Academy going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Healthcare is changing around us. This is a strategic planning year for the Academy. We have an incredibly thoughtful and skilled team of advisors as we think through the board as advisors to the Academy, and we go into strategic planning. I feel like, again, context is everything, and I see the Academy being able to sense the environment that we're in and move forward by really figuring out, are we able to match what our goals and opportunities are with being able to continue to deliver what we are all very committed to, which is the care of the patient with serious illness. How are we going to do that? How are we going to support our professionals? And so I really see over the next decade the Academy continuing to remain naturally curious, to not dig in. I think digging in is really not going to be the right approach, and I don't see that happening. I see us as being thoughtful, but also willing to do some just-in-time decision-making. I think the rigidity will not be a recipe for success, and luckily and thankfully and with great support, that is not where we are. And so I see us being able to be a flexible, adaptable, nimble organization that will change with healthcare as we see what happens in payment models, as we see what happens in support and quality measures. So there's going to be a lot of pieces there that I think that we're going to be able to react to.
When I think about your positive energy, another thing besides the curiosity and the optimism that comes to mind is your sense of humor. You do see the joy in life and the funny things in life, and we can have this edited out if it ends up being too embarrassing. But wouldn't it be fun if you could share with us just at least one story of something funny that happened along the way?
Let's see. I like to think of a couple of different scenarios. So it's very interesting bringing that positivity to the table. So we've got a number of issues this past year where positivity might have been foolishness. And so as I think through us really pushing a few things through, and the macro grant is coming to mind at the moment, and that, oh, this would be really great, and then and being incredibly positive, deep down inside being incredibly scared that we weren't really going to get this or contender. And so I think that humor in that, some people talk about the imposter syndrome and the game face. So having incredible game face, right? That like, oh yes, we've got this. This is an incredible opportunity, and we've put in this fabulous application. And then actually when we got it, I was surprised as all get out. I'm like, oh my God, that was just game face. I didn't think we were really going to get it. So as we think through some of the more humor, so as we say, we have to fake it to make it. So people might not have known how actually surprised I was by that. But and I think it's when we look at those sorts of pieces where you kind of chuckle inside and go, wow, I can't believe that people actually really followed me down that road, because I had no clue. So sometimes I would say some of the funniest moments are maybe wrong, never in doubt. And so, that ability, and so that can be not always the funniest thing, but I would say that I've had several of those moments this year as thinking through and being able to be positive when perhaps that wasn't warranted, and then it being a little chuckle inside that, wow, I'm really shocked that worked out. So
thank you. It seems that some of the things that have we've been able to do over the last few years have really just been because we were bold enough to give it a shot. And we may hear that voice of the imposter syndrome saying, are you ready? Do you really know what you're doing? But sometimes just making that leap, if it's good for the people we serve, if this is where we need to go, why not us?
I think the other thing, Joe, in this is you do have to carry a sense of humor and levity, which is that if we know that without great risk, there's often not great gain. But in those moments when we fail, whatever that might look like, that being able to sort of have I would say a moment of levity around failure, that it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Like taking some of those chances where they might not pay off is not necessarily the worst thing. And we could, have a celebration after where we're about the process or what we learned along that. But I don't think that, having pity parties in the midst of failure are really, that's not how I like to spend my time. But we can certainly say, well, this is what we learned from it. Okay. And then we put our heads down on the pillow and it's the next day.
Right. Another way of saying total flop is awesome learning opportunity.
I will say that one of my faculty recently, having had an incredible learning week, said, "Is it okay if I just don't learn anymore this week?" So yes, there are times when you're just over it, but it's a nice thing to laugh about.
Well, do you have any other words of wisdom you'd like to share?
Yeah. So I'll say that it's something that you said in the last couple of days, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's really, I think, taking from that African proverb, I think, is really an incredible learning experience, because for us to take that to heart, because to go together takes more work. It's so much easier to pack your bag and leave and run down the road by yourself, because you have all your own stuff and you actually don't have to negotiate anything. What's really more challenging but also more exciting is to go together. And I look forward to seeing the Academy go together with many others to make this a continued great learning experience for all of us as we try to improve the care for patients and families with serious illness.
Well, thank you, Tammie, and enjoy the last 3 days of your presidential year. It's been a whirlwind. Where did the time go?
I have no idea, but I can tell you that since we're sitting in Orlando, afterwards, I'm going to Disney World.
Perfect.